Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have more fun. So I have Steve Kreitzberg with me this morning from Apparatus. So I guess we could start, what is it you do, Steve? Let's start there.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to take you back on a bit of a historical tour to get to that answer. I started my career in the computer industry, so I have a background in engineering and went to work for HP and their computer divisions and managed engineering groups, et cetera. Along the way, went back and got an MBA in finance because that was the ideal combination in high tech in those years. But I left high tech in the very early 90s and started what became a interconnected series of real estate investment enterprises, which still continue to this day. And probably sometime around 1992, I began saying to myself and others that someday somebody needs to build out a company that does bookkeeping and accounting just for contractors. Because at that time, we were basically all of our aspirational goals depended on being able to hire and work with really good contractors. And that wasn't the problem. The problem was that some of my best contractors were really not very skilled at running their accounting and finance functions. So as a client of theirs, what we would find is they wouldn't invoice us, or if they did invoice, we'd pay a bill and they'd apply it against the wrong invoice. And so we were constantly leaning forward to them saying, hey guys, we need you to do X, we need you to do Y. So that almost tongue-in-cheek notion that someday somebody's going to solve this problem brings me to about 2017. 2017 was when a kind of a convergence of technologies finally became available. QuickBooks Online, which is the cloud version, of course, of the Intuit main product, finally came on the scene. Dropbox, Outlook, and ultimately Zoom. So it was that set of technologies that allowed us to build what Apparatus is today. So let me describe that. And I could do it best by just covering from a who do we help, and then what do we do for them, what promise do we make, and what outcome can they expect. So the people we work with today, our clients of Apparatus, are builders and remodelers that are probably doing between, say, 2 and 10 million, and they are growth centered, they are coachable, they are goal driven, they are
You've already
collaborative.
eliminated 80% of the contractors out
No, I
there.
really haven't. Yeah, I really haven't. And they're cash confident. They're to a point with their business where this is a problem they know they need to solve because it acts as a ceiling of complexity to keep them from growing. So what we do, what Apparatus does, is we do a service which is end-to-end accounting using the QuickBooks Online platform and all of the CMS integration, Buildertrend, CoConstruct, et cetera. And then, of course, the reporting that allows our clients to have the information that they need to make good decisions. And really, the way that I think about it, the problem that we're solving is that if we take a step back, clarity is the foundation of all confidence. So what I say to my clients is, look, we're in the clarity business. We're going to give you the information that you need so that you have the confidence to take the actions that are going to drive the success of your company. And the folks that we want to work for are very interested in having that outcome. And that absence of clarity comes from a lot of things. Folks get used to flying blind, which is a huge problem. But as we know, a lot of contractors quite literally fly blind. They don't know where they are financially, and they keep going.
Okay.
And so we're solving the problem of unintentional neglect, which means, hey, they know they need to attend to this, but it isn't their background. We're solving the problem of lack of skills, lack of time, lack of confidence. And frankly, in a lot of cases, we're solving the problem of fear. People
Right.
don't want to know what the books are telling them. But like the guy behind Alcoholics Anonymous, all progress starts with telling the truth. Our version of that is all progress in your growth starts from knowing the truth. And then the final piece, if a client comes aboard, what they end up with is they go from the chaos of their current bookkeeping system to a precision construction accounting tool that is structured, meaning it's based on the
So,
NAHB
right.
standard.
Steve, I have a question for you.
It's up to date.
Okay, if
Go
people
ahead.
have an issue with accounting, most contractors suck at accounting. I know that. So they've usually got some like Builder Train, Co-Construct, Procore, pick one, right?
Yeah.
What would you say? Let's say a contractor doesn't want to use Apparatus just for fun. What would you think? What does a contractor need to know that they normally don't know to make good accounting decisions?
I'm sorry, you had a predicate there, which was presuming they don't.
Assuming they don't use you guys, just for fun, okay?
Oh, okay, don't use
So
us.
so same they're not going to use you for whatever reason. What should a contractor know about accounting in his jobs that he probably doesn't know? What kind of information should he have available to him?
Yeah, I think the key mind shift is to go from that's a necessary evil to this is the core capability that I need to have a foundation on because I can't grow without it. And like I say, the issue we're really solving is clarity, because what the average contractor doesn't know when they don't have good financial information supporting their decisions is they don't realize how toxic that is to their future goals. When you don't have that confidence, it bleeds into everything else that you're doing. It is that bid that you didn't pursue quite hard enough because you weren't sure of your numbers. It was that opportunity to partner with a new capital source that could have opened up an entire new line of business for
So
you.
let's say, Steve, I think a contractor should know whether they're making and losing money on each job every week, in theory, right? Should be able to look at that and say, I'm making and losing money and why. So a lot of people say that there's QuickBooks Online and there's QuickBooks Desktop, right?
Right.
And now a lot of the new ones like JobTread and Procore and, well, I don't Procore, a lot of them integrate with the online. But
Correct.
I hear rumors that, well, the online isn't as good as QuickBooks Desktop.
Yeah,
is that true or not
we hear
true?
that a lot. Yeah, we do a
Right.
lot of myth busting on that. So let me attend to that. QuickBooks, of course, is Move Intuit has decided to make QBO their flagship project. They are investing millions in building out QBO because
It's QuickBooks Online for those people.
QuickBooks Online. Yep. Because it's a subscription model. They get away from shrink wrap or download software, and they get to sell you a product that they get a recurring fee on. Now, they rolled QBO out 7 or 8 years ago, and you can see why they did it, but I think they underestimated the mistake that would be. When they rolled it out, it was good enough to run a lemonade stand and not much else. And they've been fixing it and improving it and adding capabilities every quarter since. So it is now a very capable tool, but a lot of people formed their opinion of QBO early on when they heard someone say, well, you can't do project accounting in QBO, but you can in desktop. That was true at one time and is no longer true. And there are dozens of things about QBO that it didn't have years ago that it does have now.
Well, let's say, because you hear this from accounting companies, right? I mean, like every contractor has an accountant, right? They may not be a construction accountant, but they're an accountant. And
well, yeah, you mean a CPA.
A CPA, or even
Yes.
a person doing their bookkeeping. A lot of people do it internally, the internal bookkeeper and that kind of try to track stuff.
Right.
And so, most of them are using Procore, Buildertrend, JobTread, there's a bunch of them out there. Do they all integrate with QuickBooks Online? Because I hear some people have some problems with some of them and it doesn't quite integrate right and they can't quite get it to work. And then they end up doing it, they go back to QuickBooks Desktop because it just doesn't do what they want it to do.
Yeah, the key CMS platforms, the most important ones, Builder Trend, Co-Construct, of course, that's being wound down in favor of Builder Trend, Job Tread, Procore, et cetera. The market leading CMS platforms all integrate very well with QBO. Now, there's idiosyncrasies about each of those tools and how they handshake with QBO, but if you are using any of the well-known CMS platforms, you're going to have a good integration with QBO. And of course, that's one of the things we do for our clients because we're solving the joint problem of good financial foundation and a tool that integrates with their client-facing tools like Builder Trend, et cetera.
Yeah, one of my clients has a difficult time integrating Procore
Yes.
with QuickBooks Online. In fact, what they've done is they've gone to QuickBooks Desktop and they run QuickBooks Desktop remotely with Procore because it just isn't QuickBooks Online friendly.
Yeah, Procore is one of the CMS platforms that has one idiosyncratic element to it that requires kind of a half step, a different integration to get what you need to, or where you need to be. I suspect Procore is working hammer and tongs to solve that problem.
Okay. So if you're working at a contractor, what numbers should you have as a dashboard to look at weekly to know whether your plane's going to crash or not, like an instrument panel?
Yeah, that's right. What we provide all of our clients, the core 5 reports that we get them started on, and they get these every Sunday in the wee hours so that their first cup of coffee on Monday morning, they have it in front of them. A P&L for the company, a P&L.
So the profit and loss is for the entire company. Is that accrual or cash or both?
Depending on their requirements, generally it's going to be a cash basis profit and loss. Okay. Then a profit and loss at the project level. So you can think of taking the profit and loss statement and pulling it like an accordion. And now each of my projects has its own profit and loss. And I have a column for general and administrative costs that don't tie to any particular project. So that's the second report. The third report is an accounts
quick question
payable.
On the second one, okay? On the second one, doesn't work in progress sort of mess that up? Because you got stuff you haven't billed for that you've done, stuff you've done you haven't billed for, and it's just, I find that the work in progress number sort of messes things up because you really don't know where you are on cash because it's just something in the bank account. And then accrual gets messed up because you may not have billed or have billed yet. You've just stuff you have billed for. And my clients have found that the whole work in progress thing gets everything confused.
And it doesn't have to. Let's not complexify something that doesn't have to be complicated. If you are building a spec home, you are incurring cost, labor, material, subcontractor, equipment, and you are aggregating that cost and putting it into an inventory account for that project. Right. Because you don't have any revenue yet, it's a spec home, and therefore you are building cost into inventory, but you can still see exactly where you are for that project in terms of your original budget for that project. And sticking with the spec home example, when you go to sell, you now have a closing, and at that instant of closing, you have revenue recognition, and you move the work in progress account, which is an inventory account, you move all the costs associated with that project into cost of goods sold, which does hit the P&L for that project. So now you have revenue, cost of goods sold. The difference between those two numbers is gross margin. So spec homes, you build cost into inventory, and then you take it out of inventory onto your P&L only when you close your sale. A custom home is different. A custom home, you are recognizing revenue by the draws you're getting, say, from your client, and you are recognizing cost into cost of goods sold. So your P&L is building itself over time. Now, there is a reconciliation transaction that we do for our clients every month to make sure that their draws are not ahead of their progress completion. And if they are, there's a little bit of a recon there, a reconciliation that happens, so they don't think their gross margin is higher than it really is. That's the mechanism for custom homes. A remodel project is basically like a small custom home, and the bookkeeping for it is the same. So this doesn't have to be complicated, and we make sure our clients also don't get wrapped around the axle on the difference between accrual and cash basis, because that can be complicated, but we're in the clarity and simplicity business. We don't let our clients get confused by this stuff.
Okay, so what happens when you've got a guy, let's say you're doing a project and you're trying to bill, I think you should bill weekly, but most people can't pull that one off. And you bill every other week, because a lot of my clients have been in trouble because they do more than the client's paid for, and then they have an argument with the client withholds funds, and they have this big, they don't get paid, bottom line,
right,
what they should. Happens. I always say people should be ahead of the billing, because if the client ever goes sideways, you don't want to have them owe you money, because you're never going to get it. So when you're doing that, but when you're doing billing, then you're billing your framing and that kind of stuff. Maybe a while getting out there before you actually get the money in from the client for doing the work you've already done. And it seems to, because especially in remodels and stuff, like there's this direct discrepancy between, when you think you should bill it, but you can't because the weather messed up, or the client didn't pay the check, or there's all these variables all over the place. And so trying to figure out exactly where you are, to me, has been very difficult on my clients. Now, I guess what you're saying, the key to that is actually have a budget that's realistic, right?
Yes, that's right. And you're navigating to the budget. To stick with the flying the airplane in flight here, the budget is the course you're on, and you've got to maintain course direction, and you've got to maintain altitude. And the only way to do that is to be constantly checking in on where I am in my current position to where I was supposed to be with my budget.
Right. So I would say in that case, without an accurate budget, accurate accounting is really hard to do.
Well, without an accurate budget, even accurate accounting is going to leave you a little bit lost. You'll know the truth, but you won't know the deviation from the original plan.
Right. And to me, it's like course corrections, everything, right? So if you're over or under budget, and before the plane hits the mountain, so to speak.
Yeah, if you're off course, that's right.
You're off course. But if you don't know that immediately, if all of a sudden your framing's running longer than it should, or your concrete goes out of line, or whatever, you can't fix it. And a lot of contractors, I find, it's sort of like after the project's over, they find out where they made or lost money, and it's way too late to fix anything then, right?
Yeah, and I think the biggest shift that we take our clients through is we move them from a world where they have a poor understanding of their company level profit and loss to a world where they have an absolute understanding of their company level profit and loss, and an absolute understanding of their project level profit and loss, because the whole business is built on the notion of, if I have a continuous stream of profitable projects and those profits exceed my general and administrative costs, I have a profitable company. But it is remarkable, Paul, how often we meet folks who come aboard and say, hey, we really need your help, Steve. And they've been running a business for a very long time in spite of themselves, without knowing where they are. Right. And of course, it takes a lot of, it's that old story of, if you're using the next 2 jobs you've sold and the client advances you're getting from those to pay bills on the last 2 projects you've completed, something's wrong. Your business is way off track.
And that's, I use, back to the plane analogy, for example. Let's say if you're flying an airplane, I use that if you're flying a Piper Cub, like there are 2 guys in a truck, you don't need much instrumentation, right? I mean, there's the ground, there's the sky, don't hit it and you're good.
Yeah, it's
but
all VFR,
as you fly a more sophisticated plane, let's flying your Beechcraft, got a little more instrumentation. But when you get to, I'm going to give numbers like 2 to 3 to 5 million, you're like flying almost a small jet, and you need stuff that reads ahead of the plane, behind the plane, and where you are. Because if
That's
your
right.
instrument panel isn't accurate, you're going to crash the damn thing. And I've seen
Yeah.
a lot of contractors that use the instrumentation they used when they had two guys in a truck, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now they're doing, 100,000 a week, and they
Yeah.
can lose 50,000 so fast they don't know what happened, right?
Yeah.
Because they're flying, they're not having the instruments appropriate to the plane they're flying, right?
That's right. And Paul, I'll extend that metaphor because when I talk to new potential clients and they describe their problems, so often I'm saying, look, all of what you told me just now makes you normal, not anything other than normal. And the metaphor we often use is we begin to work with a client, we are quite literally taking over an airplane in flight. So we're tapping them on the shoulder and saying, why don't you carefully get out of the pilot's seat? I'm going to slide in and I'm going to grab that stick and I'm going to maintain heading. I'm going to maintain altitude. But I look left, I look right. We've got smoke coming out of both engines. I've got broken gauges on the dash. I've got a cracked windscreen.
And there's a big mountain right up in front of you, right? That you can't see out of the window, but it's on the radar, right? You're
Yeah,
going, oh,
right.
this is not good.
So our whole process, we have a very disciplined onboarding process that we bring clients through. And the whole process is gain control to keep it on course, do the diagnostics necessary to triage, fix the urgent matters, and then we have a whole series of sequential fixes that we work through. It's actually 9 named stages that we bring our clients through. By the time they get to stage 9, they've got a precision construction set of books. They're now a stabilized client. And now we're able to work with them to answer the critical questions that you can answer. You can ask and answer when you have really clean
Right. I mean,
books.
to me, if you can't answer the question, did I make or lose money this week
Yeah,
and why?
that's right.
Basic question, right? It's funny
Yeah.
because Taco Bell can answer that for every Taco Bell in the entire country every 4 hours. They control labor, right? And if you look at Costco, the reason they count you and go in the door is they control their labor costs. There's such tight margins that they can only have so many people in the store depending on how many people they've got walking in the front door. So they literally adjust their labor every 4 or 5 hours to make sure that they keep their margins. And if you look at, Mama Mia's pizza stand, she doesn't know until the end of the year that she made or lost any money, right?
Yeah, she hands her CPA a box full of receipts.
Right.
And
So
I
it's
have to
fix this,
laugh,
right?
but
So, it's, and the good news is with technology, now you can actually know, did you make or lose money this week and
that's
why?
right.
But to me, if you don't have the answer to that question, you really can't make good decisions because your decisions are based on your information, right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't have good information, I have an example sort of, which I had a client and they said, we don't have any money. And I said, well, let's look at your cash and accrual accounting. On cash, they were down 500,000. On accrual, they were up 500,000.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they ran out of, I go, dude, where's your cash flow projection? They go, what's a cash flow projection? Right.
Yeah.
And this guy was doing, he made $1 million the first half of the year, but he was broke. Right. Because he worked on a lot of government contracts and those people didn't pay for 60, 90 days. And I keep telling there's cash flow and there's, and you got to make cash flow is not the same as, billing. It's a different kind of thing. Right.
That's right.
And there's a gap between, the work you're doing, the money you get paid. And if you can't fund that gap, with receivables, you're screwed.
Yeah, that's right.
And a lot of guys that work don't understand how much that gap is. And they say, well, gee, the more money I make, the more money I don't have. And I go, yeah, it's all in your receivables. And you can't pay your bills with your receivables, right?
That's right. That's right.
So,
and to make sure your client, the audience here is comfortable with this and doesn't feel bad about their own bookkeeping. We've worked with clients who came to us and at their starting place was they were running a $5 million construction company out of a checkbook, no bookkeeping at all. So we've seen the full spectrum, but here's what our best clients have come to understand. They arrive at some point in their lives where they realize that for their business to grow, they themselves have to do less. And that's counterintuitive. You cannot work harder and do more and grow your business. You actually have to simplify and do less. So then it becomes, how do I get the help that I need? And I'm a client of Dan Sullivan. And so a lot of the ideas that I've implemented in my businesses and I work with and with our clients are based on Dan's ideas. And one of Dan's ideas is this notion of the moment you ask yourself, how do I get X done? You're on the wrong path. The proper question is, who is out there that is absolutely an expert in this topic that I can harness and have them work with me? It's this idea of don't ask how I'm going to get this done, ask who, not how. And the moment you start asking who, then it leads to companies like Apparatus who are expert in solving this problem. So you have to think about Apparatus as a bolt-on to your company
Right.
that's going to allow you to grow, and you have to be willing to hire that expertise. And this is not delegation. Delegation gets a bad rap because so often delegating, you are handing the task to someone less qualified with all of the risk that is kind of going to come with
Right.
that.
Well, if you have somebody help you versus doing it, it's a different, you're just giving yourself more work, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's interesting because we do recruiting, right? Same thing. Clients, they don't understand recruiting, they
Yep.
understand marketing, don't understand accounting, but there's really good companies that do recruiting, they do accounting, they do marketing, and
Yes.
they're very reasonable these days. Not, they're way less expensive than doing it yourself.
Yeah.
And you can take a construction business, and by hiring the right, outsourcing the right stuff, you can get it done really fast, really efficiently, and make your life a lot easier. And all
That's
those
right.
areas.
Yeah. The way that we say it, and I didn't invent this, but I love this saying, you can have anything you want in life if you are willing to give up what you hate.
Right. I like that.
And a
It's sort
lot
of
of
like,
people, go
what
ahead.
is it? I like the, a smart man learns from his own mistakes. A wise man learns from the
Learns
mistakes of
from
others,
others.
right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I think that's true. Well, that's really helpful. And anybody listening this, if you can't tell yourself how much you made or lost this week and why, you probably don't have enough right information. The other thing I would be wary of is a lot of the guys I work with don't actually understand accounting and aren't willing to learn. So they give all their stuff to their accountant or their bookkeeper or whatever, and they're flying blind because that's why a huge amount of construction companies get embezzled because they don't know, right?
That's right. Yeah,
so
that's right.
I would advise contractors learn enough, and you don't even know what you don't know. So understand what be able to look at your own financials and interpret them, right?
Yeah. And here's something counterintuitive that I think actually helps with this. And I think this will surprise you, Paul. But a lot of the time, I find myself saying to prospects and clients, look, there's a mind shift I want you to make right now. And the moment you do, this is going to help you in everything you're doing. Stop thinking of yourself as a builder or as a remodeler or as a spec home builder. And instead say this: I am an entrepreneur with a specialization in custom home building, or I am an entrepreneur with a specialization in remodeling. The moment you begin to adopt that persona, you realize that, like all other entrepreneurs, there are certain things you need to understand. And suddenly it becomes perfectly reasonable as an entrepreneur to have a minimal understanding, at least, of the core concepts of accounting and finance. But there is a culture within construction that, and it's because most of my clients came up through the ranks. They were swinging a hammer at some point, and they followed a mentor who was running a larger company, and they arrived at the point where they are a builder or remodeler, having no background in sales or finance or marketing, et cetera. And you have this rugged individualism that takes over, where they say to themselves, hey, builders like me don't know that stuff. That is probably true, but entrepreneurs do. So adopt the persona of an entrepreneur and rethink where you stand. You've made a decision to be a builder or a spec builder or a remodeler, but the first decision you made was you made the decision to be an entrepreneur. And with that came certain
Right.
things that
I
you now
think
need to embrace.
so, Steve, I think that's the big transition, that from a craftsman to
Yes.
a leader, or a craftsman to an entrepreneur. And I think the first shift has to be in your head, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
if you say in order to make money, I got to work hard, which is not true. And that what got them successful as a carpenter will not get them successful as a builder.
That's so true.
And
Yeah.
so to make that mind shift from a craftsman to an entrepreneur, I think until you pull that one off, it's going to be tough. And an entrepreneur understands the numbers, they understand marketing, they understand finance, they understand recruiting, they understand what functions all businesses have to succeed. And just because you can, put in a great set of cabinets, or get your foundation straight, does not help you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I can guarantee you, I don't spend a moment of my day ever saying that I'm running a bookkeeping or accounting business, or in my real estate investment activities, I don't identify with the persona of a real estate investor. That may be what I do, but that is not how I view myself. I am first and foremost an entrepreneur, and that is the mindset that defines everything and is the filter through which everything passes first. And I think it's very, very helpful.
And one of the things that's important, Steve, is that when you're an entrepreneur, a lot of people, unfortunately, have a negative view of entrepreneurs. I mean, they were a kid, rich people are rich because they, do over other people. And there's this whole persona, especially in, the middle class kind of thing, where, rich people are rich because they're doing bad things, right? And who wants to do bad things, right? So if you have the mindset, a craftsman is making an honest living, right?
Yeah, right.
And doing things right. And all these rich people are just doing people in and taking advantage of people. Who wants to be a person like that, right?
That kind of head trash is really damaging, because the truth of it is, right now, the years that we're living right now are the best time on the planet to be an entrepreneur. The tools that are available to you, the technology that's available to you, the ability to differentiate and serve clients that are willing to pay you very well for what you know. There has never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. But you're right, Paul, depending on how you were raised or the ideas you adopted along the way, it's that head trash that can really take you off track. And it's a shame. Yeah. But what we know is the successful, the people that are doing the 10 and 15 and $20 million custom home company, they don't carry around those old stereotypes.
They got over it. They read enough books, watched enough podcasts to get over the fact that, the bell-shaped curve exists. There's good and bad people that are rich and poor and every place else, that the income you have does not reflect the human being you are. And there's nothing that's important.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Steve, if people are interested in your services, how do they get a hold of you?
Our website is apparatusteam.com, and you can reach me directly at stevek@apparatusteam.com.
Okay. And Steve, I assume your first kind of introductory call to find out if it's a good fit or not, you'll sort of give them some good free advice, for lack of a better term, on what they need to do to get where they want to go, whether they want it with you or somebody else. You need to say, here's where you are, here's where you need to be. You can use us or somebody else, but this is the gap and you need to fix it, right?
That's exactly right.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks, Steve. I really appreciate you being on this morning.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Paul.
Thank you.